Ex-UK Special Forces break silence on war crimes by colleagues. Well, we knew. At least they're being honest about it now. Former members of UK Special Forces have broken years of silence to give BBC Panorama eyewitness accounts of alleged war crimes committed by colleagues in Iraq and Afghanistan. You know, those two places that we had no business being in. Invaded Afghanistan, it turned out that Obama, it turned out that Osama wasn't even there. He was in his house in Pakistan, of all places, and he was being sheltered by the Pakistan government, but don't worry about that. And also, Iraq had no WMDs. Millions dead, tens of thousands of soldiers, all wounded, injured, uh, not shell shock, PTSD, all that stuff. Also, America could get oil for, a few dollars off each drum. But anyway, giving their accounts publicly for the first time, the veterans described seeing members of the SES murder unarmed people in their sleep and execute handcuffed detainees, including children. They handcuffed a young boy and shot him, recalled one veteran who served with the SES in Afghanistan. It was clearly a child, not even close to fighting age. Killing of detainees became routine, the veteran said. They'd search someone, handcuff them, then shoot them, before cutting off the plastic cuffs used to restrain people and planting a pistol by the body, he said. The new testimony includes allegations of war crimes stretching over more than a decade, far longer than the 3 years currently being examined by a judge-led public inquiry in the UK. The SBS, the Royal Navy's Elite Special Forces Regiment, is also implicated for the first time in the most serious allegations, executions of unarmed and wounded people. A veteran who served with the SBS said some troops had a mob mentality, describing their behaviour on operations as barbaric. Well, it's war. No, I'm not justifying this shit at all. I saw the quietest guy switch show serious psychopathic traits, he said. They were lawless, they felt untouchable. Special forces were deployed to Afghanistan to protect British troops from Taliban fighters and bomb makers. The conflict was a deadly one for members of the UK's armed forces. 457 lost their lives and thousands more were wounded. Asked by the BBC about the new eyewitness testimony, the Ministry of Defence said it was fully committed to supporting the ongoing public inquiry into the alleged war crimes and that it urged all veterans with relevant information to come forward. It said that it was not appropriate for the MOD to comment on allegations which may be in the inquiry's scope. Psychotic murderers in the regiment. The eyewitness testimony offers the most detailed public account of the killings to date from former members of UK Special Forces, UKSF, the umbrella group which contains the SAS, SBS, and several supporting regiments. The testimony from more than 30 people who served with or alongside UK Special Forces builds on years of reporting by BBC Panorama into allegations of extrajudicial killings by the SAS. Now, the SAS, we do like them. They're pretty cool. A lot of the operations they've been on are pretty cool. But Northern Ireland, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, and there was that little unfortunate incident of men going around doing drive-by shootings, and then they managed to catch some of them, and it turned out that the guys were actually SAS, and that happened in Northern Ireland and Afghanistan and Iraq. So anyway, speaking on condition of anonymity because of a de facto code of. By the way, they were plain clothes as well when they were going around doing drive-by shootings. In Iraq, they were dressed up with the fucking wraps and robes and all that stuff as well. And when they actually got caught and captured, they got them out and went, "Wait a minute, this is two white English guys," and they held them hostage, and then the SAS had to go in and get them back. But anyway, yeah, those laws state. Oh wait. Never mind, I haven't read the last one. Speaking on condition of anonymity because of a de facto code of silence around Special Forces operations, the eyewitnesses told the BBC that the laws of war were being regularly and intentionally broken by the country's most elite regiments during operations in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Those laws state that on such operations, people can be deliberately killed only when they pose a direct threat to the lives of British troops or others. But members of the SES and SBS were making their own rules, the eyewitnesses said. If a target had popped up on the list 2 or 3 times before, then we'd go in with the intention of killing them. There was no attempt to capture them, said one veteran who served with the SAS, referring to people who'd been previously captured, questioned, and then released. Sometimes we'd check we'd identified the target, confirm their ID, then shoot them, he said. Often the squadron would just go and kill all the men that they found there. One witness who served with the SES said that killing could become an addictive thing to do and that some members of the elite regiment were intoxicated by that feeling in Afghanistan. There were lots of psychotic murderers, he said. On some operations, the troop would go into guest house type buildings and kill everyone in there, he said. They'd go in and shoot everyone sleeping there. On entry, it's not justified killing people in their sleep. Yeah, but you don't know if there's a bomb vest or something nearby, like, is complicated. Like, basically, anyone who is actually served, in the comments, they're going to pipe up. Now, the handcuff thing, that's not justified, but going in there, you don't know if they've got a gun under the pillow, you don't know what they have, right? It's a complicated thing which I'm not trained to give advice on, so I'm not going to. A veteran who served with the SBS told the BBC that after bringing an area under control, assault teams would sweep through the area, shooting anyone on the ground, checking the bodies, and killing anyone left alive. It was expected, not hidden, everyone knew, he said. Intentionally killing wounded people who do not pose a threat would be a clear breach of international law. But the SBS veteran told Panorama that wounded people were routinely killed. He described one operation during which a medic was treating someone who had been shot but was still breathing. Then one of our blokes came up to him. There was a bang. He'd been shot in the head at point blank range, he said. The killings were completely unnecessary, he added. Those are not mercy killings, it's murder. More junior members of assault teams were told by more senior SAS operators to kill male detainees, according to the testimony, using instructions such as, he's not coming back to base with us, or this detainee, you make sure he doesn't come off target. Detainees were people who had surrendered, been searched by special forces, and were typically handcuffed. British and international law forbid troops from deliberately killing unarmed civilians or prisoners of war. A former SAS operator also described learning of an operation in Iraq during which someone was executed. It was pretty clear from what I could glean that he posed no threat, he wasn't armed, it's disgraceful. There's no professionalism in that, the former operator said. The killing was never properly investigated, he added. According to the SAS veteran, the problem started long before the regiment moved across to Afghanistan, and senior commanders were aware of that. The testimony, as well as new video evidence obtained by the BBC from SAS operations in Iraq in 2006, also supports previous reporting by Panorama that SAS squadrons kept count of their kills to compete with one another. I mean, a lot of soldiers do that. Sources told the BBC that some members of the SAS kept their own individual counts and that one operator personally killed dozens of people on one 6-month tour of Afghanistan. Yeah, but in what context? Like, it's war. And the SAS are good, right? You have to give them that. Right? They're very, very good at what they do. But anyway, I would like to know the context of those first. It seems like he was trying to get a kill on every operation. Every night someone got killed, a former colleague said. The operator was notorious in the squadron. He genuinely seemed like a psychopath, the former colleague added. In one incident that sources say became infamous inside the SAS, the operator allegedly slit the throat of an injured Afghan man after telling an officer not to shoot the man again. It was because he wanted to go and finish the wounded guy off with his knife, another former colleague said. He wanted to, blood his knife. Like the Fremen, well, they were in the desert. Sorry. Knowledge of the alleged crimes was not confined to small teams or individual squadrons, according to the testimony. Within the UK Special Forces command structure, everyone knew what was happening, said one veteran. I'm not taking away from personal responsibility, but everyone knew, he said. There was implicit approval for what was happening. To avoid scrutiny of the killings, eyewitnesses said members of the SAS and SBS would plant so-called drop weapons on the bodies of the dead to make it look as though they had been armed in the photographs routinely taken by Special Forces teams at the scene. There was a fake grenade that they'd take with them onto target. It couldn't detonate, said a former SAS operator. Another veteran said operators would carry AK-47 rifles, which had a folding stock, because they were easier to fit into their rucksacks and easier to bring onto a target and plant by a body. Reports were fiction. Oh dear. Officers would help to falsify post-operational reports in order to avoid scrutiny for the actions of assault teams on the ground, according to the testimony. We understood how to write up serious incident reviews so they wouldn't trigger a referral to the military police, one of the veterans said. If it looked like a shooting could represent a breach of the rules of conflict, you'd get a phone call from the legal advisor or one of the staff officers in HQ. They'd pick you up on it and help you to clarify the language. Do you remember someone making a sudden move? Oh, yeah, I do now. That sort of thing. It was built into the way we operated. That's the way government as a whole operates, especially the military. Oh, people are going to pipe up in the comments. The reports were a fiction, another UKSF veteran said. An intelligence officer who worked with the SBS described reports which said they had been caught in a firefight, while the photos showed bodies with multiple clean headshots. Falsified paperwork could help prevent an investigation by the Royal Military Police, but British Special Forces operations generated deep concern from Afghan commanders and Afghan government officials. David Cameron, who made 7 visits to Afghanistan as Prime Minister between June 2010 and November 2013, the period now under scrutiny by the SAS public inquiry, was repeatedly made aware of the concerns by Afghan President Hamid Karzai, according to multiple people who attended the meetings. Mr. Karzai repeatedly mentioned this issue, former Afghan National Security Advisor Dr. Rangan Dadfar-Spanta told Panorama. He said Lord Cameron could have been left in no doubt that there were allegations of civilians, including children, being killed during operations carried out by UK Special Forces. Don't you just love paying taxes to fund this stuff? It's great. Extrajudicial executions of children by military personnel. God, I love taxation. The Afghan president was so consistent with his complaints about night raids, civilian casualties, and detentions that there was no senior Western diplomat or military leader who would have missed the fact that this was a major irritant for him, said General Douglas Lute, a former US ambassador to NATO. General Lute said it would have been extraordinarily unusual if there were a claim against British forces that the British chain of command was not aware of. A spokesperson for Lord Cameron told Panorama that, to the best of Lord Cameron's recollection, the issues raised by President Karzai were about NATO forces in general, and that specific incidents with respect to UK Special Forces were not raised. A spokesperson also said that it was right that we await the official findings of the inquiry, adding that any suggestion that Lord Cameron colluding in covering up allegations of serious criminal wrongdoings is total nonsense. Unlike many other countries, including the US and France, the UK has no parliamentary oversight of its elite special forces regiments. Strategic responsibility for their actions falls ultimately to the Prime Minister, along with the Defence Secretary and Head of Special Forces. Interesting. Bruce Holder KC, a former director of service prosecutions responsible for bringing charges and prosecuting those serving in the armed forces, told Panorama that he hoped the public inquiry would examine the extent of Lord Cameron's knowledge of alleged civilian casualties on British Special Forces operations. You need to know how far the rot went up, Mr. Holder said. Look at this whistle blown for the BBC, which is the Tor network, because Special Forces guys, even when they're retired, they get watched. They get watched very, very closely. Now, do I believe that this happened? I mean, yeah. Yeah, I do. They get caught doing it in Northern Ireland back in the day. And everyone as well, yeah, they've done it a lot. They've done this stuff a lot. A lot of the bomb making stuff that the UDA and the UVF had, guess where they got it from? It was military hardware that they were using. But anyway, if this is something that they have in fact done and it gets proven, then I want them to face justice. However, the fact that they were like, it's totally okay to kill kids. It's war, you know, and yeah, I get it. War can make men go a little bit fucky-wucky, right? I totally understand that. However, if someone's handcuffed and they're no longer a threat, you're a bitch. Right, that's just you wanting to murder. You shouldn't go into war with the hope and desire to kill someone. Basically, if you have the desire to kill someone, then you're a sick little puppy, to be honest. But let's keep an eye on this and see where it goes.